Welcome, friends. It's nighttime here, and my kids are finally in bed. Before I can settle down for a long winter's nap, I wanted to share with you a question and answer session with a young boy who used to live with the Duggar family. First, let me give you some background on the boy's family, because folks, it's as interesting as it gets. And it's yet another example of how the Duggar family seems to have a lot of unsavory people revolving around them. Dr. Scott Fidowski was a medical professional who worked with people in the IBLP community during the 90s and early 2000s. But the family connections are more deeply rooted through the mom, Teresa Fidowski. Teresa and the Duggars go way back. You see, at some point in Michelle Duggar's birthing history, she decided she wanted to know more about the Bradley method of natural childbirth. Enter Teresa, who at times has been the only Bradley method instructor in all of Arkansas. She is an avid anti-abortion campaigner, local homeschool maven, and mother of 8. Her family had so much in common with the Duggars. The Bradley method can be controversial. Maybe that's something for another video. But safe to say, some people who practice this method are strongly committed to giving birth at home, never using medication, and going all natural. As a teen, Jill Duggar began babysitting Scott and Teresa Fidowski's many children. In a 2015 article that Jill penned for the TLC blog, she credited Teresa Fidowski, whom she called a doula, with giving her more experience at births other than those of her mother. So Teresa is pretty much where Jill got her initial start down the road to becoming a midwife. After an indeterminate amount of time as a Bradley method instructor, Teresa Fidowski applied for an apprenticeship with the goal of becoming a licensed lay midwife in Arkansas. In May 2013, she was sent a letter from the Arkansas Department of Health denying her application. In the letter, she was informed that the decision was based on several factors, including her conduct during 2 previous apprenticeships, each of which was determined by the licensed lay midwives. The letter went on to cite specific shortcomings that had been documented. So something weird seems to have been going on with Teresa Fidowski. But even more interestingly, according to their son and additional sources, in the early 2000s, Dr. Scott Fidowski ran into some trouble with the state medical board and the DEA and eventually lost his license. Scott's son reports that Scott had to enter drug rehab, and Teresa decided to leave her children with the Duggars for a period of time so that she could be with her husband and fully support him in rehab. Interesting, right, friends? Makes me think of Anna Duggar yet again. All of those examples around her of wives staying with their husbands and covering up for his bad behaviors. Guys, I always assumed that Anna was all alone in being married to a husband who treated her like Josh has treated her. And yet, look at all of these people around the Duggars who have gone through some kind of crazy scandal where the husband does something completely inappropriate and the wife stands by him. It turns out that Anna is surrounded by people who have gone through the same thing she's been going through. Anyway, one of the Fidowski boys who was left with the Duggars recently created a TikTok account where he talks about the family and his current crazy hardcore workout regimen. He's left Christian fundamentalism. He's ostracized by his family, and his name is Bowman Fidowski. He answers questions on his TikTok, but also completed a great question and answer session on Reddit. I'm here to bring you some of the best info from all of his messy shenanigans on social media. I'm glad he's spoken out, and you can check out his TikTok for yourself at. Now let's head down the Bowman Fidowski rabbit hole. So here we go, friends. Here's an introduction to Bowman. I grew up with and around the Duggars. Ask me anything. Hi there. So I posted a TikTok about a time that Josh gave our family a bunch of computers that had lots of deleted P on them, which was how I first saw P when I was around 10 years old. I'm 28 now. Quite a few people asked me to come here and do an AMA, so here I am. I am also one of the sons of Teresa Fidowski. don't hurt me. And I have a great deal of info on anything related to that. And then he provides a link. I'm an open book and I'll do my best to respond to every question. Question. If I'm doing my math right, Josh would have been about 15 when he passed on those computers. What type of relationship did your family have with the Duggars, and did this incident change that? Response. So I am not entirely certain that I was 10, somewhere between 9 and 12. Though, but yes, he was around 15, 16, I want to say. And my family started spending a lot of time with them for some reason, and we seemed to always be at their house, either for church or to do school, or whenever my mom would not watch us, we would be left with them. And no, that is actually the odd thing to me. It did not change anything. Part of me wants to believe they played it off as simply being due to a virus, because I remember having this ridiculous fear of those sketchy sites, and that if I did that, my computer was going to be full of bad things. So, just for your information, Bowman's TikTok account is full of pictures of him and audio of him talking about his life. I think he's returning to school. There's some stuff about him dating. There's stuff about him leaving Christian fundamentalism, his family, and there's also some Duggar stuff if you want to check it out. I'm going to be intermixing pictures from his TikTok account here so you can get a full view of what's going on with him. Okay, next question. Wait, you did school with them? That had to be a trip. Any interesting stories? Response. Yeah, we often were over there during the mornings and days for some reason. Actually, there were periods where we kind of lived with them. If you go down the rabbit hole on here, you'll find stuff about my dad, Dr. Fidowski. Losing his license for drug-related issues for a time, he had to go to rehab, and during that time, my mom legit just left us and went where he was at for rehab and left us with the Duggars, which is weird. I can't even remember how long, but it seemed like a long time. Funniest story I have from that was when we all went to Silver Dollar City in a huge bus, and we all had to wear the same color of shirts because they do that not to lose any of the kids. And several groups of people stopped us to take pictures, and there were a few girls somewhere in Branson, Missouri that took a lot of pictures of us. That's so sad. Bowman doesn't make any bones about it in his TikTok. He does seem to say that he feels it's weird that his mom left him with the Duggars for a while, and you'll see further on in the AMA that Bowman describes having some issues with his mom and feeling uncomfortable with her. Okay, question. This question is too long for me to read all of it, but basically they're asking, do men always come first in the religion, and what was school like for you with the Duggars? Response. I think there is some truth to what the person said above, that the man comes first and that the wife's first commitment is to her husband, which obviously I don't agree with. If you bring a kid into this world with me, I'm not going to let you leave that child to come spend time with me. I'm a grown man. It's our child. I can't even comprehend it. If I went to rehab and my wife tried to leave our kids to come be with me, I would be like, wait, what? No, I'm a man. I'll be fine. Go and take care of the children. So yeah, was not normal. School for us was not very structured. Every year it seemed different, and my mom tried, but she was not a teacher. She eventually moved to a lot of pre-recorded curriculums, and we would just watch them as if we were in class and take tests and things. It turned into a lot of self-instructed work, which often led to mediocre results. And I've heard that a lot with many families within the IVLP. They eventually turn to these homeschooling videos that they follow on a book by themselves, like alone in a room. I'm probably going to do a video about it eventually, but it seems like a very difficult way to learn. And here Bowman is asked about the IVLP. Question. Hi, if you grew up around the Duggars, does that mean you also grew up in the IBLP or some other fundamentalist group? How did that journey begin with leaving it all? As an ex-Mormon, I can understand how much that sucks. I hope you are doing okay. Response. So my family jumped around churches a lot when we moved back to Arkansas from California, but we usually were at non-denominational or Baptist churches. However, we did for a few years do church at the Duggars house, and I was forced to attend a few seminars of the IBLP. What started my not being super involved was that I finally got my parents to let me go to school to play football, and I went to Shiloh Christian for 2 years of high school, and I was able to use that in football and homework as an excuse to not be able to do a lot or most things related to the church, and they slowly stopped trying to force me. Question: did you notice any particular dynamics among the siblings? Like, what did their relationships with each other seem like? Response: it's hard looking back on it now, having the information that we all have and not using that to create stuff in my mind. But I will say none of the girls were very open or talkative around Josh. I used to think it was because he was older in age, but not as close with them. But obviously there was some other stuff going on. There was a large difference between how they acted with him and how they acted with John David. I regularly saw them laughing and joking and talking with John David, but I didn't see this with Josh. And I've heard that many times over from people about John David, that he gets along really well with his sisters, and overall he's known to be like very kind and interactive with people around him. Okay, next question. Do your parents still keep in touch with the Duggars? Would they be upset with you for spilling the tea to us? Bowman's response: they would be, and they probably are livid. Lol. My dad, not so much. He doesn't really keep in touch with them much, and he knows his dirt from the past is already out in the open, and he's had to deal with them. My mom is still very involved, and her dirt is not out in the open, ... yet. You can tell Bowman has a lot of frustration towards his mom in this question and answer session, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with many factors in his life. I did see some pictures of him with his family as an adult on Instagram, so it's possible he still gets to see his brothers and sisters. I'm pretty sure even on Instagram he spends time with his nieces and nephews, so at least he does have some contact. Question: what were the older girls like? Did they have specific interests they voice? Someone, I think Jill, mentioned once that Jana used to be really goofy and silly, but it seems like Michelle and Jim Bob stamped that out of the kids. Did you know her back then? Response: it was always really hard to ever build relationships with anyone of the opposite sex because we were never allowed to be together, really, unless in big groups. I remember not liking that and being able to see that the girls would reach a point where they would close off when they were interacting with me. But they were nice and fun to be around. There was never a lot of one-on-one talking or joking or really getting to know them because that was not allowed. And yes, Jana was always goofy, and that is sad if it has changed. Okay guys, and here comes my favorite story ever about Jessa. I'm so glad that Bowman shared this. Question: do you have any favorite stories about interactions with any of the Duggar kids? Response: I have quite a few, but one of my favorite memories was of Jessa, and this was pretty early on when we were hanging out with them, and I was still learning about their rules and things. Someone had peed on a couch or wet their pants on the couch, and there was a big puddle of urine there, and I was sitting across from this couch, and Jessa comes over and sits right down in the urine, and I was like, there was pee there, right? And she, with a completely blank face, goes, I know, we can't change our clothes unless they get dirty, and I want to wear something else. I was like, damn, this girl is different, ha 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 ha. It's funny because Bowman does talk about having a crush on Jessa, but he says that really he was too much of a sinner in the eyes of the Duggars for him to ever be in a situation where he would have been courting her, but he says he really liked her. I found this response sad and interesting. Question: is abuse, child endangerment, lack of food, and other illegal things common in Fundy families and families you knew growing up? Response: yup. Lots of angry dads creating lots of angry boys who go on to create more toxic masculinity. Question: why do you think Jana is still at the family home? Response: probably just because she is single and that is kind of what they do. I don't doubt that she feels a responsibility to help out and help raise the kids, which, to be honest, I haven't kept up with them or the show, but there would not be a lot of time for dating or courting if you were doing all of that, so it doesn't surprise me. I hope she is at least happy. And here's one where Bowman kind of gets into how he was able to leave and why he left. Question: how were you able to escape from the Fundy world? Do you think there's hope for any of the Duggar kids to do the same? Response: I had to cut myself off from everyone and just do my own thing and not care what anyone thought of me. For a long time, I was getting calls and emails and Facebook messages from people wanting to grab coffee because apparently my mom was email blasting everyone saying I was going down a bad path. And I think there could be hope, but it is really hard to still hold on to a lot of those ideologies while also progressing. So if they don't let some of them go, they will have a hard time ever getting away from it. Question: did any of the siblings even like Josh at all? Response: honestly, they seemed to be a bit standoffish. John, David, and him got on fairly well, but that was about it. I always assumed it was just due to differences in gender and age, but obviously there was more going on. Here's another one that I find pretty interesting. Throughout all of Bowman's social media posts, he really speaks, fairly positively about Michelle and Jim Bob overall, and he did say that they were fairly good to him while he lived there. Question: were Jim Bob and Michelle active parents to your observation, or was it all left to the older girls? Response: they were very active, but they were very dependent on their buddy system. If a kid came up to Michelle and asked for something, she would say, well, where is your buddy? And that's how they managed to have so many children. Also, Bowman is another one who has good things to say about John David. Question: did you ever get weird vibes from the other boys, like John David, Joe, Josiah, etc.? Response: no, not at all. John David and Joe were hilarious and super fun to be around and were really good friends to me. Josiah was younger, but he was always crazy talkative and had something to say and was fun to talk to. I just want to put out there, and it's been reported on a lot, Bowman is the one who on his TikTok, he talks about receiving computers from the Duggar family and finding P files on the computers. It's been talked about a lot, so I'm not going to address it with a question and answer here, but you can always go to his TikTok to see more about that. He does say that his family brought it up with the Duggars and they just kind of acted like maybe it was some kind of a virus on the computer. Okay, now we're going to address a little bit what Bowman says was going on with his mom or has been going on with his mom over time and her business with home births. I find it really interesting, and I will say this is all allegedly. It's coming from Bowman, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. Question: what happened with your mom and her business with home births? What's the scoop? Response: oh my goodness, out of all the things I have an issue with, this is number one, honestly. So she has never been an actual midwife until very recently. She got licensed for a bit and then she let her license expire. She has always gotten around licensing laws by saying she is a doula and instructs her clients to say she is not a midwife. The issue with this is you are not allowed to do certain things as a doula that a midwife is allowed to do, and yet she does those things and had done those things on the shows with the Duggars, which they have covered for her. Most recent shitty situation is my mom was involved with the birth of my niece in October, and my niece passed away 30 minutes after being born, and the labor lasted what I was told was close to 3 days. It is not a good situation, and as someone who's been in the medical field myself for nearly 10 years, I'm not going to read the rest of it. You'll have to check out his TikTok if you want to know more information, or check out Reddit, but he has a lot to say about what his mom has been doing with her doula experience. She is a registered licensed midwife right now, I believe, in Arkansas, but he's saying in the past she hasn't been, and he makes a lot of claims that she was practicing in a way that was unsafe. Next question: were all of the Duggar boys obedient to Jim Bob, or did they ever talk back or rebel as kids, teens? Response: they were all very obedient. Never saw a lot of rebellion from them as teens, and what I saw from kids was pretty much just the younger ones being kids and maybe getting upset about something or raising their voice, which they would get called out on. But I never saw any public discipline, really. They would go and have a talk, and that was how things were handled. Here's one that I think we can all say is fairly obvious. Question: was Josh treated special in comparison to the other kids? Response: I would say so, yes. There was a lot that came with being the oldest sibling, and that was fairly ingrained in him from a young age, I think. He was supposed to be the leader and whatnot. That's interesting, and something I hadn't fully thought about is like, what kind of pressures did he feel on himself to kind of continue on with Jim Bob's legacy? I think Jim Bob seemed to really want him to become a politician, and he foresaw a lot of good things for Josh, and we have kind of talked about that, but I wonder how Josh interpreted and internalized all of that in a way that, pressured him to act and be a certain way. Okay guys, this is going to be the last one that I present here in my video. If you want to see more, please check out Bowman Fidowski's TikTok or the Reddit AMA. But I wanted to share it with you because I really found Bowman's AMA one of the most interesting ones. He had a lot to say about the Duggars. He obviously lived with them for a period of time, but also I found his own story about his family and his parents very interesting and compelling in different ways. So check him out if you get a chance. Question: did the Duggars have a reputation of being honest among people who knew them in person? I imagine many must have reacted on the lies that are very clear when rewatching the show with more knowledge. They claim that they paid for the big house themselves, that Joe's stay alert was the first time a child goes away, but Josh had been sent away prior to that. All the lies about the SMs, etc. Response: so yes, they had the reputation of being honest and kind of being the epitome of what you are supposed to strive to be in the Christian faith. I myself am extremely shocked to see that Jim Bob had been lying or forgetting things in order to protect Josh, and I am sure everyone else is too. He was like a counselor for everyone. Anytime we would do something wrong, my parents would set us up to go have Jim Bob talk to us and mentor us, lol. So it was crazy to see the change. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed hearing about what Bowman Fidowski had to say about his family growing up in the fundamentalist Christian religions. I guess for part of the time he was in the IBLP, his time with the Duggars. I found it all really interesting. I know it's already been reported on what he had to say about the computers they received from the Duggars, but I feel like there's so much more to his story that he's been talking about. That was just kind of like salacious, but there's a lot of other things he had to say that I think are very interesting and a good part of my repertoire in trying to figure out the Duggar family. I hope you guys have a great night, and I will be seeing you soon.